Good evening. Tonight, Alan and I have the honor of welcoming you to an event that has become somewhat of a family reunion for us. For the last 4 years, we have used this event as a way to celebrate and thank Frasier, and also as a way to bring together the extended family that Frasier helped us form for our son Bode. His case managers, his paraprofessionals, his closest friends, his younger brother Hudson, and Grandma and Grandpa. Team Bode. So to Team Bode, cheers and thank you.
Congratulations, today is your day. You're off to great places, you're off and away. You have brains in your head, you have feet in your shoes, you can steer yourself any direction you choose. You're on your own, and you know what you know, and you are the guy who will decide where to go.
Now, our path to Frasier began when Bode was about 2 years old. Prior to then, he was pretty easy as babies go. In fact, we would often joke that he was a starter baby. He was kind of like a starter baby, and we'd make jokes that this parenting thing's a piece of cake. Well, that came into particular contrast when his brother Hudson was born. In little time, Hudson earned the nickname the Screamer. So in comparison, Bode's relatively mild manner and ability to occupy himself quietly offered a welcome respite.
Hudson's lungs finally wore out after about 6 months, and our capacity finally opened up to begin observing events indicating that maybe Bode's development wasn't typical. One particular memory sticks in my head. We were on a family vacation in Hawaii. It was probably the second day into the trip when my brother and sister-in-law offered to take Bode and his cousin Jack, also 2 years old, to a nearby grocery store. When they returned, they reported impatiently, "I'm not sure what's going on, but Bode just doesn't listen at all." I'm not doing that again. We were really taken aback. I mean, it was true that sometimes Bode didn't respond to his name when we called to him, but was that strange for a 2-year-old? I mean, what did we know? We didn't have another toddler to compare him to.
You'll look up and down streets, look 'em over with care. About some you'll say, "I don't choose to go there." With your head full of brains and your shoes full of feet, you're too smart to go down any not-so-good street.
Now, to be fair, we were starting to notice that things were a little out of the ordinary as well. He was a happy, even exuberant kid, but he wasn't connecting with us or with other family and friends. He didn't show any signs of stranger danger. He wandered away from us in crowds. And although he was talking, it rarely seemed to be in response to what we said to him or in any connection to his environment. As he was getting older, instead of feeling like we could communicate more with him, we felt like he was drifting away from us. And as a parent, it was heartbreaking. That fall, we began attending preschool at Mayflower Church in Minneapolis. One day, his teacher pulled me aside and with a concern, and she said that he was frequently being disruptive, removing learning materials from the walls, not engaging with peers or responding to instruction. This went on for a while, and about halfway through the year, she made it clear to us that her classroom was not set up for what Bode seemed to need, and she encouraged us to talk to our doctor about alternatives. Now, this, of course, was pretty devastating, and we wasted no time in getting in to see Bode's pediatrician, and he was in agreement that further assessment was appropriate. While he gave us several organizations to investigate, he made it clear that his top recommendation was Frasier. We were really scared to take this next step, but we were really eager to get some answers.
It's opener there in the wide open air. Out there things can happen, and frequently do, to people as brainy and footsie as you.
We've had a lot of conversations with families and professionals in this wonderful community about those minutes, hours, and days after the diagnosis. Autism spectrum disorder, receptive language disorder, global developmental delays, fear, loss, relief, clarity, confusion. Talk about a spectrum. Fear of the now cloudier future. Loss of the expectations you've built up in your mind, coupled with a contrasting relief that there is something you can point to as a reason. Clarity that motivates you to get going on a path, but the confusion about how to identify and access available resources. Then the reality that although it feels like your world has been turned upside down, as it relates to parenting, loving, and raising your child, absolutely nothing has changed.
I'm sorry to say, but sadly it's true, that bang-ups and hang-ups can happen to you. You get all hung up in a prickly perch, and your gang will fly on. You'll be left in a lurch.
Alan mentioned before, that it sometimes felt like Bode wasn't in the world with us. I'm pretty sure that I felt this more than anyone else. Maybe it's because as a mom, I felt like I was supposed to feel a deep closeness and mutual understanding with my child. I'm not really sure, but what I do know is that I found the distance between us absolutely devastating. So many nights I would lay next to him at bedtime, listening to him speaking in what seemed like nonsensical phrases, and I'd cry to myself. This is the time I'd always dreamed about with my children, sharing stories at the end of the day, bonding. Would it ever be a reality for us?
So, since I'd gotten tired of our kid tiptoeing out of the bedroom asking, why is mommy crying on my pillow? It seemed time to get started with a full-time program at Fraser. And so we did, and it was full-time.
You will come to a place where the streets are not marked. Some windows are lighted, but mostly they're dark. A place you could sprain both your elbow and chin. Do you dare to stay out? Do you dare to go in? How much can you lose? How much can you win?
In the spring of 2010, Bode began each day in the Chameleons classroom at Fraser Preschool in Richfield. Yeah. And there he was greeted by teachers and staff that immediately seemed to understand what he needed. Most notably, the school and its classrooms were much like a typical preschool environment. The same games, the same experimental play, the same learning goals. What was different was the understanding that all kids, disability or not, learn in different ways. In his classrooms was a mix of kids with different needs, those with Down syndrome, autism, and other developmental learning and social challenges, as well as typically developing kids. Incidentally, a couple years later, as Hudson began in preschool, this integration would help him experience the benefits of learning with and learning from peers of all stripes.
But on you will go, though the weather be foul. On you will go, though your enemies prowl. On you will go, though the hack and cracks howl. Onward up many a frightening creek, though your arms may get sore and your sneakers may leak.
One of the most memorable examples of this time was with his occupational therapist, Kendra. Now, when we think of sensory issues, we often think of being easily irritated by certain textures or noises. And Bode did have an aversion to sudden loud noises like flushing toilets, alarms, and some of the tactile stuff too. But he also got a deep enjoyment and comfort from other textures. And Bode's teachers at Fraser understood this, and they worked it into his day to break up the hard work with some fun. I think some of you know where I'm going with this. On several occasions, he delighted in going to the shaving cream slide. And the image that popped into your head of what that might look like is exactly this. an indoor slide attached to a jungle gym of sorts, covered in shaving cream. And you can imagine the thrill. Is this really allowed?
Now, at the end of each day, which would start around 7 a.m., Bode would be bussed home, usually falling asleep, arriving at Grandma's door, sometimes as late as 6 p.m. It's still hard for me to imagine, but with a full day like this, Bode would be up at 6 a.m., wide-eyed and ready for another. Some in this room would not be surprised by that. But he was, most every day without complaint. And, not every day was perfect, of course. There were tears, exhausted frustration, sour moods, disenchantment, and frankly, usually this was just me trying to navigate the federal and state financial resources. Bode's ever-present optimism and positive outlook during this time is, of course, a testament to his demeanor, but also, in no small way, a credit to Fraser.
In the early summer of 2011, we met again with Fraser's assessment team. It had been a full year, and Bode had made enormous progress toward his goal of being independent enough to be in a mainstream classroom. At this time, the team had recommended that the best path for Bode was to enroll in public school for kindergarten and for him to be surrounded by typically developing peers who could be role models for behavior and learning. A few of those are here with us today. This was a huge turning point and saw the addition to Team Bode of an amazing group of professionals, peers, and friends, again, many of whom are in the room tonight. Nowadays, I still lie in bed with Bode at night. At 13, he very much likes to cuddle. He likes to tell me how cute I am and that I am the best mom in the whole family. And then he sometimes asks me if I'll get up in the morning and cut him watermelon, and that it's okay if I want to go to bed again after I cut him watermelon, but that it's also okay if I want to get up with him after I cut the watermelon. And then he might ask, if it's a weekend, whether we can go to get a donut in the morning at Lenz and Byerly's. And if he asks about getting a donut, he always reminds me that we need to get a donut for his brother, too. And every once in a while, he asks questions about his future, where he'll live, that he wants to live with us, but maybe not. And I say that we'll figure all that out in time. It is really, really hard to believe that there was a time when I wondered whether I would ever bond with this child.
With banner flip-flapping, once more you'll ride high, ready for anything under the sky, ready because you're that kind of a guy. So be sure when you step with care and great tact, and remember that life's a great balancing act. Just never forget to be dexterous and deft, and never mix up your right foot with your left.
Now, flash forward to today. Bode's an 8th grader at Southview Middle School in Edina. Go Edina. Not only is Bode in the world with his peers, he's somewhat of a celebrity. In fact, Hudson started 6th grade this year and joined his brother at Southview. He was quite floored at the high fives and hugs and phone number requests that he received during orientation. There's no doubt in our minds that Fraser accelerated Bode's development during the most important time in his life, to position him for this type of social success and happiness. We do still live with a lot of questions about what's next, but we have the confidence that with guides like those at Fraser, we'll tackle each and every one with a plan, with clear and simple tactics, and with the confidence that we'll be able to help Bode live his best life. And really, what else is there for any of us? We're eternally grateful to the Fraser organization, and we hope that our story tonight will inspire you to help Fraser continue to move mountains. Thank you.
Thank you.